All right. This is an official council meeting of the Livingston Parish Council. Regular meeting today being Thursday, February the 23rd, 2023, in the year of our Lord. Today, Miss Erin Sandifer is going to lead us in an invocation before we get started.
Thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to meet together and do your business. We invite you here to lead the meeting. We pray blessings upon our land and our people. Help us as council to do as much good as often as we can, whenever we can, every day that we can, and every place we can. Thank you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Today I'd like to ask Mr. Chris Moody, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
My pleasure. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Chris.
Thank you.
Ms. Caroline, would you be so kind as to call the roll to make sure we have a quorum here tonight?
Mr. Mack.
Here.
Mr. Talbert.
Here.
Mr. King.
Here.
Mr. McMorris.
Here.
Mr. Delight.
Here.
Miss Sandifer. Here. Mr. Girlinghouse. Mr. Ard.
Here.
Mr. Wascom.
Present. Real quick, just a reminder, you might want to check your cell phones just so they don't explode during the meeting and interrupt too much. Also, to let everyone know, we will have public input. If there is a specific item that you want to speak on, please raise your hand. If I don't recognize you, raise it higher. We will try our best to get you to the podium to speak on any item that comes up, and try to limit it to 3 minutes and try not to repeat yourself. With presentations, I don't think we have any this evening. The next thing would be the adoption of minutes. We have January the 26th, the regular meeting of the council. We also have February the 9th for the regular meeting 2023, and we have February the 9th Juban Crossing Development meeting minutes. And there's a motion by Mr. Girlinghouse to accept all three of those minutes at one time. Second by Mr. Shane Mack. Any discussion? None being, all in favor say aye. Aye. Item 9 is the parish president's report, is the adoption resolution to support a proclamation of Flood Awareness Month. I spoke with Mr. Layton earlier, and he said Mr. Talbert was going to read that. Gary, do you want me to do it, or you want to do it?
I got it. First off, he wanted to let everyone know that his grandson, Collar Werner Stretchfield, was born on January 30th. He was 20 inches long, 6.15 pounds, and he spent the first 22 days of his life in the NICU. But he came home yesterday. Awesome. And so that's why he's not here tonight. The proclamations, whereas the Amite River Basin has been substantially affected by floods in the past and can be expected to be affected in the future, and whereas some of the most devastating floods occurred during the spring season of the year, and whereas the citizens, communities, and parishes within the Amite River Basin have suffered substantial loss during those floods, and whereas the citizens and individual property owners should be aware of the measures which can be taken by himself or through government to reduce the risk of flood losses. Now, therefore, I, Layton Ricks, parish president in and for the parish of Livingston, Louisiana, do hereby proclaim March 2023 as Flood Awareness Month. In witness whereof I have set my hand and caused to be affixed the official seal of the parish of Livingston, Louisiana, on this 23rd day of February 2023.
Got a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Talbert, seconded by Mr. Girlinghouse. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries. Item 10, discussion of the Denham Springs townhomes located at 31164 Louisiana Highway 16, Denham Springs. This is in Mr. Keene's district. Scooter, do you want to speak on this?
No, this is something that was brought to me probably 6-8 months ago, and it's on Highway 16 before you get to Lockhart Road on the east side, just across from your district. And it's really nice townhomes, but now they're asking for some additional funding and things. So I got some people here to speak on it.
Okay, that's fine. If you want to come to the podium and give us your name and address, I believe what it was is a Capital Area Finance Authority. It's a memorandum that allows for a cooperative endeavor agreement in lieu of taxes, I believe, ad valorem taxes.
That's right.
Okay, you want to give a quick synopsis of that, or?
Yes, I would. I'm Vanessa Levine. My address is 4152 Canal Street, New Orleans, Louisiana, 70119. I'm the executive director of Millennium Properties, which is a subsidiary of Volunteers of America. I want to thank you. I want to say thank you to the council for all of your service and commitment to Livingston Parish. I'm here tonight to ask for your consideration of a resolution authorizing us to enter into an agreement with the Capital Area Finance Authority for payment in lieu of taxes, which will allow the Denham Townhomes development to move forward. In August of last year, Denham Townhomes was awarded $12 million in 2016 flood funding through the state as part of a new middle market loan program to fund rental housing. Middle market housing is set for families who earn too much to qualify for low-income housing, but they still struggle to make rent. With rents and interest rates rising and continuing to rise, many middle-class Livingston Parish families are paying more than a third of their income on rent alone. These households include teachers, firefighters, deputy sheriffs, and nurses who could call Denham Townhomes home. The property has a restriction. 51% of the total of townhomes will be income and rent restricted to those making up to 80% area median income, which equates to about a $60,000 annual income. Mr. Eddie Idell regrets he could not be here this evening. His engineering team have worked with the Planning Commission on our drainage and site plan, which have been fully approved. We meet all the requirements as of right, and think that the plan actually lays out very nicely with the density requirements. We've reduced the total number down to meet the requirements. However, we're stalled with a gap in funding, even with this considerable award from the state. Late last year, just like many of us, the federal government hit us with a series of interest rate hikes, adding to historic spikes we'd already been experiencing in construction pricing. In response, the state Office of Community Development has recently approved an additional $1 million, so upping their total to $13 million investment for this development. We've invested $500,000 of our own funds in pre-development expenses. The architecture and contractor are ready to go. Livingston Parish's approval of this resolution would allow us to close finance and start construction as early as April. Your approval specifically would freeze the annual property tax payment to $1,090 for a term of 20 years in exchange for payment in lieu of to CAFA and the public benefit of the housing. Before bringing this request to you, we did some homework because we wanted to better understand the economic impact of what we're asking for to Livingston Parish. To that end, we engaged Dr. James Richardson, who came our way, recommended by Lauren Scott, an LSU economist who also advised on the Bass Pro development here in Livingston. In short, the report concludes, and I have copies of this. If you don't have, I can leave these to you to study, but it concludes that the economic value to Livingston Parish will be significantly higher by approving this property tax abatement. First, there's the one-time economic impact during construction, both for local businesses, subs that are employed, leading to an increase in personal income of almost $820,000 in Livingston and additional tax collections of almost $50,000, as well as out-of-parish businesses who come in estimated to support $540,000 in annual personal income with tax collections of just over $32,000. Now that is a one-time construction-related benefit. From an ongoing perspective, this was striking when we saw in the report. The parish will receive over the term of the 20-year pilot up to approximately $5,380,000 in annual benefit, and this is calculated through the local sales taxes generated through the residents, ongoing maintenance, property management, and other minor taxes. In comparison, without this approval, the project can't move forward. And in this case, the parish would receive $8,676 for the same period, as the assessor has recently assessed this as timberland. It's also worth noting that unfortunately our state is in a use it or lose it position with this 2016 flood funding. And so if this project does not move forward, the $13 million will not come to Livingston, and we'll get, probably go back to the federal government. I'll end here. We truly believe Denham Townhomes will be a great benefit to the residents of Livingston Parish and the local economy. And we just want to present this for discussion today, as Mr. Keene mentioned, to come back for a vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if anyone else has anything to say in the audience, if not, if we have any more questions, we may call you back up, if that's okay. Mr. Talbot, I think you had a question?
Y'all remember several years ago when I went and spoke at the East Baton Rouge Parish Council, because at that point in time, before the legislature changed the law, EBR could grant a tax break in Livingston Parish. We as the council, the sheriff's department, and the school board passed a resolution against a pilot program, payment in lieu of taxes, which was similar, mainly because we're talking about 102 residents with little or no, I mean, we already know that, we already know that in our subdivision ordinance and listening to the school board, there's a classroom problem, there's a teacher problem. So we're gonna add 102 residents for $1,000 a year in payment in lieu of taxes for 102 units. So how many kids are we talking about? How many teachers do we need? How many more classrooms do we need with no ad valorem taxes coming in whatsoever? So that's the initial impact.
Sure.
Not to mention, we've talked about infrastructure. We've talked about infrastructure improvements. You know, where are the infrastructure improvements going to come without any additional tax revenue? I mean, at least when we build a $250,000 home, we're getting taxes on $175,000 above homestead exemption. On this, you're going to build 102 units, and all you're going to get is $1,042 and whatever it is a year in taxes. That's it. That's the same. That's all you're going to get. You're getting nothing else. So I mean, I understand the synergistic effect of these additional people coming in, and their dollars are going to go into the community. I mean, but my question is, we get that anyway. If they're coming to our community, they're going to live somewhere, or they're living in our community, going to go to this place. So basically, where is the benefit to the parish other than to provide affordable housing to 50% of the people, which gives them a competitive advantage of their neighbors who paid full price to build their apartments? So I mean, look, that was the feeling of this council 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I don't even remember when it was.
I think it was 3 years ago.
2 years, two or three.
Yeah.
And so, look, I mean,
Let me ask you a question. If I remember correctly, we didn't really have a choice in that matter, if I'm correct. I mean, whether we pass the resolution or not doesn't affect whether it happens or not. Am I correct in saying that they could do it without our approval?
not anymore. Back then, EBR Metro Council set as the housing authority, and they made the determination for the surrounding parishes. Because of that action and the request of this council for the Louisiana delegation, along with us lobbying the East Baton Rouge Parish Metro Council, along with the resolution from the school board, this council, and the sheriff's department, I went and testified, and it was defeated. East Baton Rouge said it's not our position to grant a tax break in Livingston Parish.
Which was wrong. They shouldn't have been able
And
to
so
do that.
the legislature changed it, which is why the pilot's coming before us now. They're coming to us and say, do y'all want to grant, do y'all want to do the
Okay, that's
pilot
good.
and get the payment in lieu of taxes?
Mr. Mack, you had a question?
So what was the estimated property tax that we would receive if this is not passed?
$8,000 something dollars.
Over 20 years.
Talking about once it's built, it would be
Oh,
$8,000.
No, once it's built, you get $1,000 a year for 20
If
years.
we don't pass it, if they pay,
Well, she said if they don't pass it, they're not
If they
going
don't pass it, the deal's probably dead. So in essence, what I think if I could be correct or not incorrect, if we pass the pilot, we're going to get 20 grand over a little over $20,000 over a 20-year period in actual payment in lieu of taxes. And they're going to build 102 units. Okay, if we don't do anything, we're going to get $8,000 over 20 years with no impact to schools, infrastructure, or anything else.
Okay.
I mean, so
Is there any more questions up here? Shane?
I'd like to make a motion to disapprove.
Well, before we do that, I had one more person who wants to speak, if you don't mind. I forgot your name. Did you want to come up and say something? Please, come on up, give us your name, address, and,
It doesn't matter to me,
what's that?
it doesn't matter, no, that's fine.
Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Peggy Westerman. I'm the owner of the property, and I live in Baton Rouge at number 7 Oak Alley, and my zip code 70806. I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. I was prepared to tell you a few of the things that Vanessa's already done, so she's already pretty much covered what I was going to say. I have had this property for 17 years, and I was going to develop it myself at different times. I bought it as an investment. I've done another development out in Albany a number of years ago, Acadian Trace, about the same time I bought this property. And I've done a number of things in Baton Rouge and other places. So that was always my intention to do that. This is the third time that Volunteers of America have approached me on this. I've actually had 3 different purchase agreements with them. The first one was in 2017, and they really wanted to do it, loved the location, but they couldn't raise the government funding for it. Don't ask me to regurgitate the names of those programs, but there were various ones. That didn't work out, so they passed on it. In 2020, they came back again. We did a second purchase agreement. Applied for the money. They were unable to get it. They've gotten in other parishes. These have been some very successful, lovely things that have been built in different locations. So in 2021, I decided I'm going to develop it myself. I was working with Fairburns. I've done it before. And there they came again. So in 22, the beginning of it, we signed another purchase agreement. I don't think anybody anticipated what was going to be happening. I know I didn't, and I have various investments. I didn't anticipate the Fed was going to bump the rates 8 times and they're still coming for more. I didn't anticipate all this inflation, and I don't know about you, but my family definitely feels it. It does not matter what your income level is, you're feeling it. I was very happy when I first learned of Volunteers America to work with them, because it's just the kind of humanity organization that I personally relate to. I've always loved working in Livingston Parish. It reminds me of my home parish, Bossier Parish, and I just love it here, and I've done a number of things and own different properties here. So I would just like to comment to Mr. Talbot, please. One thing you said, I wouldn't assume that all of those 102 units will be filled with all newcomers. I would suspect that you've got a lot of citizens here that could use that help. First of all, you don't buy them, it's for rent. Okay, so some people, and I know even over in Baton Rouge Parish, are expressing the need to move out, and whatever people are struggling to, many families are, to cover all their financial needs. So I think a lot of these people they're already right here. They're already in your school. So I wouldn't assume that this is going to be some onslaught of undesirables or whatever. I don't believe that. And the last thing I'd like to say is that I've been paying you around $1,000 a year since I've owned this property. I mean, it's gone up a little bit. The tax assessor last December, my assistant called. There's 5 different parcels put together for this development. It's a little under 13 acres. He said, oh, we're going to put it all together and relabel it as timberland, and that your taxes will go way down. So somebody threw out the number of $500, not sure where that came from. Maybe it was her, my assistant, that told me. But bottom line, if this doesn't pass, that's what we're going to get. I'm getting ready to retire, unfortunately, for medical reasons. My husband's retired. I'm not going to be developing this property. So I guess it's going to sit there a while longer. No telling when the next good economic environment's going to come along. Housing's gone down 30%. We're in a situation. So I think it's an opportunity for you to really take a look at it. You're going to get more out of it than what you think you're losing. So
Thank you so
for
much.
listening to me.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
I think Mr. Delant has a question
All
for you.
right.
Basically, everyone on the council wants to do the right thing for the parish, okay? We trying to look at this as a business situation. Mr. Talbot has said it's not enough between the two numbers that was given, what we may receive in 20 years versus what we receive now. And he based that on the infrastructure requirements that's going to be there for those people, okay? So that number that he used, is that a correct number? I think you said something, was it 1,000 or 500, whatever it was, a year?
I think it's
I think the
1,009
estimate
right
was
now.
that we would receive a little over 8,000 over the next 20 years
That's the question.
versus a little over 20,000 on the pilot program.
So it's a $12,000 difference, is that correct? So for $12,000, then we got to see what that $12,000 of problems brings us.
Well, I think the technical questions would have to be answered by Vanessa. I know that Dr. Richardson did that study, and he's highly regarded, and I think
Did
he's...
Dr. Richardson say favorable, unfavorable? What did he
Oh,
say?
he's very favorable about this. After the report came out, they hired Dr. Richardson, and I've read that report. I mean, I got my MBA from LSU and did some bunch of study under some of
You
these
got a question,
economists.
Mr. King? Oh, one more, another question maybe for you.
Mainly comment, we put this on here tonight to let y'all all hear about it, because it's new to, everybody. We don't need to vote on this tonight, guys. Y'all need to take your time, look at the paperwork.
Right.
Miss Vanessa, do you have the drawings and the pictures of or can you get that to the councilman of the actual townhomes?
Yes, I can.
It's going to be a beautiful place in a great spot if that's something that we want to do. On the big 4-lane highway. You know which schools, would it be Denham Springs where that is? I think it would be.
Yeah, well, now, since it's your district, do you want to table this and get
We
everybody
definitely
copies?
want to get the information out to you guys and look at it. And Gary's not wrong. I went with him when we battled the pilot deal in Baton Rouge. And if he hadn't gone, they would be shoving things down our throat. We got to make our decision based on what we want.
All right,
And it's not just what I want. It's in my district, but it's right on your district.
it
So-
is. So if you would, can you just get us a copy of the paperwork and stuff, and we'll table this till Mr. King?
Yeah, we'll put it on in 2 weeks.
See if it's okay with Shane. Shane made a motion.
Shane?
Fine with me, yeah, table it, no problem.
Be better to look at. We do need affordable housing,
Okay.
but at what cost?
Last question.
Yeah, so I think the study and the economic impact would be interesting. And the comment I was making is that if everybody's new, then the 15 million, you know what I'm talking about. But if you just transfer individuals, then you don't get the impact, because you're just moving tax dollars from one residence to another. That was the point I was making. But it'd be interesting to see what Dr. Richardson said. But I guess my point is you got to apply that to every development as you look at it. You know what I'm talking about?
Get us that information, Ms. Vanessa, if you would, and we'll pick it back up at a later time. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Next item is board member appointment resignations. Mr. Shane Mack has Fire Protection District 11.
Isn't there another memorandum to look at?
No, it was both, A and B, they were both part of the same one.
Yeah, it's the same deal.
Yeah, so Fire District 11, North Albany, Board Member Chris Cooper moved out of the district. We need to replace him with Mr. Norman Carter. I'd like to make the motion to replace him with Norman Carter.
Motion by Mr. Mack, second by Mr. Girlinghouse. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. B, Waterway Commission, Mr. Randy Delat.
I'd like to make our reappointments, all of them to be reappointed. I thought we just did this, but
The one we got's on District 6, which is...
I think that's Gerald Boys. I did mine. I think it's Gerald Boys, yes. Go ahead.
So it's to reappoint the same ones that are in there?
Can we just reaffirm Mr. Ernie Alvarez?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we're,
Very quick.
okay. We've already done that, but I'll make that motion, we do it again.
What's the names, Randy?
Ernie Balfour, Perry Pico.
All right.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Delat, seconded by Mr. Girlinghouse. Cindy, you got the names? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. C, Fire Protection District 2, Mr. Delat.
We have two appointments to reappoint. Mr., I don't have the paper. You have the paper, Carolyn?
Bernie Ross and Charles McKinney.
Yes, Bernie Ross and,
Charles.
Dwight Hudson.
no, not Dwight Hudson, he's appointed by someone else. It's going to be Bernie Ross and Charles McKinley.
Oh, I got it.
All right, motion by Mr. Delat to appoint Mr. Charles and Mr. Bernie. Second by Mr. Mack. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No opposition, motion carries. Recreation District 3, Ms. Erin Sandifer.
Motion to reappoint Ryan Harris and Karen Strickland Anderson.
Second that.
Motion by Ms. Sandifer, second by Mr. King. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Gravity Drainage District 2, Mr. King.
Yeah, I'd like to appoint Miss Jamie Felder to the board.
All right. And that's to fill a vacancy that was there.
Fill a vacancy where Mr. Matt Hughes is.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Delat. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Recreation 2, Mr. Talbot.
We're making a motion to approve, to reappoint Ms. Tracy McCray and Ms. April Dawn Curtis.
Motion by Mr. Talbot, second by Mr. McMorris. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item G, Livingston Parish Airport District, Mr. Talbot.
I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Mr. Dana Rushing. And there's a letter also from Mr. Pope on his appointment.
All right. Well, we'll make Dana's.
Thank you.
Ms. Sandy?
We received a letter from State Senator J. Rogers Pope requesting that Robert B.J. Stewart be removed from the airport board, be replaced by Joey Sibley.
Everyone in favor? You've met your motion?
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Talbot, second by Mr. Ard. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. This next item is a resolution to authorize a waiver of Section 125-37 requirements for a minor subdivision to allow the number of lots on a servitude for John Ratcliffe located on Louisiana Highway 444, Council District 8. Actually, it's for two waivers. One being a waiver on the number of lots on the servitude. Two is waiver to do 14 lots on a minor subdivision. This is in Mr. Randy Delat's district.
This is not a developer, this is a landowner that's trying to divide his property up in his family. This is the John Ratcliffe and Ricky Amy's family. Their lots are 3.5 acres to 1 1/3 acres. It's all family property, and I like to ask for a waiver for the number of lots on the servitude. It's going to be a total of 14. Yeah.
And for the number of, and for more.
Two waivers.
Yeah, one for 14 lots as a minor sub, and the other one's for the lots in the servitude. Motion by Mr. Delat, second by Mr. McMorris. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Call the roll, please.
All right, Ms. Sandy, Ms. Carroll.
I'd like to ask a question.
I have a question, Mr. Grindhouse. Go ahead.
Mr. Gillette.
Yes, sir.
I can't tell by this map here, is the servitude on the road?
I might have a better one. Look at this one. Same, see the servitude, this is at 60 foot.
Okay.
Ms. Caroline, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mack?
Yeah.
Mr. Talbot?
No.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. McMorris?
Yes.
Mr. Delat?
Yes.
Ms. Sandifer?
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse?
Yes.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. Wascom?
Yes.
Passes.
All right, next item is authorization of the property exchange Lot 5 and the west 5 foot of 6 and the remainder of Lot 6 square, A. James campsites necessitating a waiver of Section 117-295 and Section 117-297. This is properties that are zoned for unclassified for Kathleen Treppinger and Lori Demprio in Mr. Delat's district.
This is some campsites, and they trying to sell their property and found out the carport is 5 foot over on the other person's property, so they want to do exchange. So I'd like to make a
Motion by Mr. Delat, seconded by Mr. Keene. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Wait. Randy, are they creating a new lot here?
No, sir.
Well, it says Lot 5,
Well, it's going to be called one's A and one's B, I think is what it's called. But is that what you're looking at?
which says Lot 5, and the west 5 foot of Lot 6.
It's got the drawing, you see
And
the
the
drawing?
remainder of Lot 6 in the 5A and 6A. So I'm confused, why are we, are we going from, is it still 2 lots, or is it 3 lots down from 2 lots?
No, it's still 2 lots. That other lot is someone else's lot. You see the shaded area?
Yeah.
The shaded area is the 5 foot that they're trying
On the
to,
bottom end.
So we're not creating additional lots?
no.
Okay, so let me ask you another question. When unclassified property changes hands, does it have to be classified to get a permit?
No.
No, I can't answer.
The answer is no. And look, just so you know, the ordinance committee is looking at the classifications right now, and we're going through them and we're working on modifying them so that they're easier to understand and interpret. I talked to Eddie Idell about that the other night. My interpretation of the unclassified zoning classification and his is spot on. My answer to that question would be no. You can get a permit. We can talk about it more, but no, they can get a permit to build a house, put a structure, whatever they
But
need.
they don't want to build a house, they don't want to do anything, he just wants to sell it. And it's got 5
Okay,
foot.
so-
Classified just basically is just not as restricted as other classifications.
Wait a second. Originally, we had unclassified property, and there was a list of things that could be done on it. We removed the list of everything that could be done on unclassified property. So technically, you can do nothing on it.
You cannot sell your property? That don't make sense.
I'm not saying you can't sell it, I'm just saying you can't, Shane, where does it tell you can build on unclassified property?
We're not building.
Read the ordinance, I mean, I don't see
We're
where
not
it says
building.
that.
We're not
Unclassified
building.
basically means it's not classified, and the restrictions that are not there, it's not restricted to that. Look, we're going to be talking about that in the next ordinance committee meeting. We can look into that some more and discuss it and let the council decide on how they want, unclassified to be written. But it's to my understanding, unclassified, you can put a trailer on it. It's very few restrictions on unclassified property.
Real quick, I think Ms. Dee Dee has some insight. Ms. Dee, you want to say something about that? This is our permit director.
So currently in unclassified, there are some stipulations, and they try to follow whatever is in that area to where you kind of keep the same type of development, growth, houses, trailers, commercial, whatever it is. But there are regulations on minimum lot size, setbacks, and other things that the planning department and my department follows first before permits are issued.
But the question I want to make sure the statement is, there's no building, no additional, all they're doing is exchanging property between 2 neighbors.
No change.
They just moving the line over.
That moved the line over because the carport is on there.
Okay.
So motion by Mr. Delat,
I'll second that.
seconded by Mr. Ard. Ms. Caroline, would you call for the vote?
Edie?
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Talbert?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. McMorris? Yes. Mr. Delat?
Yes.
Ms. Sandifer?
Yes.
Mr. Grillinghouse?
Yes.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. Wasco?
Yes. Item 14, authorization of re-subdivision of a 2-acre tract from tract B1A1 necessitating a waiver for the section 117-35 for the property that is zoned agriculture for Stephanie Barnett.
Okay, what this is a 22.7 acre tract. It's zone agriculture, but he wants to cut 2 acres out to move his daughter in there. And that's the waiver that's going to be required. Because it's being zone agriculture, he's still got pastures, he's still got cows. He wants to cut 2 acres out.
And just leave it agriculture.
Leave it agriculture, but he wants her to be able to build a house.
All right.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Delat. Hold on one second. We get a motion and a second first. Motion by Mr. Delat, seconded by Mr. McMorris. All right, discussion.
So Randy, the 2 acres they cutting out, would they want to zone that R1?
He only made a request from Sam's office to cut 2 acres out so that they can give a permit. He didn't ask me to zone it any kind of way. I don't know. I'll follow
Can you,
anybody's
can you
advice.
build a house on agriculture?
Yeah, so I would
Yeah, but
think
you
you
gotta have
need
3
to zone
acres.
that R1, just that 2 acres.
Okay.
So that they can
I'd like
build
to
on
do
it or
that.
do
Is that
something.
okay? What you gonna do?
Yeah. So the motion is to cut the 2 acres out and rezone it from R1 to, from agriculture to R1.
Right.
So that's the
I just
motion.
want to ask one question, though. Is that going to be called spot zoning? I don't have the next one to be called.
You know, everything is good.
Well, right now, we're kind of just trying to fix everything.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
look,
We're not trying to
within
keep
the
somebody
first
from
year,
doing
you're
something.
within
That's
the
what
right
I'm saying.
So there's no waiver needed, it's just rezoning on
You
this.
got 3 acres. and you only
I
have
think
a
that's
2 acre
right.
spot.
Wait a second.
Everybody's in agreement with that?
So is R1 3-acre lots or 2-acre lots?
R1 is 1 acre lot.
Okay, so R1 would work.
R1 will work, huh?
All right, let's get back to it. Mr. Lamb made a motion, Mr.
Wait a second,
McMorris.
R1 is a 1-acre minimum, so if it's
1 acre.
more than that, it's okay. So.
Okay.
Okay, so we had a motion by Mr. Latch, seconded by Mr. McMorris. Call for the vote, Ms. Caroline. To change the zoning on those 2 acres from agriculture to R1. No waivers needed.
Waiver needed, yep.
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Talbot?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. McMorris?
Yes.
Mr. Gilat?
Yes.
Ms. Sandifer?
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse?
Yes.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. Wascom?
Yes. Also, I'd like to, while Mr. Randy Delat's on the roll, let's run to addendum A1. Adopt a resolution to grant a waiver for the setback requirement for a road frontage, 125 feet minimum lot size width, approve both lot of 123 feet. If I'm not mistaken, this is for Chad and Donna Wall. After we zoned, their property is like 2 feet short of the setback.
18 inches.
18 inches, so we need a waiver for 18 inches.
Make the motion?
Yes.
Second.
Second by Mr. Talbot, motion by Mr. Delat. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Back to the deal.
Item 15 is authorization of a resub from lot JD3 and JD4 to 3 lots. This will require a waiver. This is from Mr. Shane Mack.
Yeah, appreciate that, John. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is lots off of Jones Road. It's up northeast Albany. I went and looked at it. It's high and dry. They're taking 2 lots that are 200 feet wide. They want to split it into 3 lots total. The lot would be about 136 feet wide. They want to put a trailer on there for their daughter. It's uniform. It's not a risk of flood. It's no drainage issue. It's not going to be no additional drainage problems created. The sewer's going to drain to the front road ditch. To me, it's a no-brainer. I'd like to make a motion that we grant this
second it.
waiver.
Motion by Mr. Mack, second by Mr. Delat. Is there any discussion?
What is the waiver exactly?
It's basically just to allow them to subdivide this property.
Okay, so why?
I guess that there's a density
There's a
requirement,
density,
2.5 lots
2.5
per
lots
acre,
per
and
acre.
they're going to be,
Behind Carter's.
they're going to exceed that density requirement, so we need the waiver.
What's it zoned currently? It's not zoned?
It's not zoned.
All right, so a motion by Mr. Mack, seconded by, I think it was Mr. Delat. Ms. Caroline, you want to call for the vote on this one?
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Talbot?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. McMorris?
Yes.
Mr. Gilat?
Yes.
Ms. Sandifer?
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse?
Yes.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. Wascom?
Yes. Item 16, zoning reclassification request to rezone parcel 0551994 located at 16160 Junior Macklin Road. This is from agriculture to R1 in rural single-family, Mr. Jeff Ard's district.
Yes, I was contacted by Mr. Smith on this property. He's an elderly gentleman, and his land's kind of a dead-end road, and it ties into a whole bunch of agricultural land that got zoned agriculture, and he wants to make sure it's R1 to make it easier for his kids in the future.
Second.
I'm all about protecting the children. Mr. Ard's motion, seconded by Mr. Delat. Is there any discussion either from the audience either? None being, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Item 18 is amend council policy and procedure for agendas.
Whoa,
You got 16 and 17. You got 2 items.
I got one more.
All right,
17.
17, I'm sorry, Jeff, parcel 0551994 Alpha.
And this is the same thing. This is his son that has property beside him. Same thing, changing it from
Second.
agriculture to R1.
Motion by Mr. Ard, second by Mr. Delat. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item, let's see, 18. Now this gets into the amend the city of the the parish council policy and procedure for agendas. Mr. Mack requested this be on the agenda.
Yeah, I appreciate it, John. So, guys, currently right now, our agenda goes out on Tuesday before the council meeting, and the council clerks are getting flooded with agenda items, in the last 2 to 3 hours. And so what I'd like to do is make a change there. I'd like for all the council agenda items, due by Wednesday noon, the week previous to the council meeting, right? Now, councilmen, you can submit agenda items and modify agenda items all the way up to the Thursday before the council meeting at 5 o'clock. But basically what this is going to do is it's going to give them the time needed to, make sure there's no clerical errors, make sure if anybody's got questions, we can modify the agenda so that the agenda is very, very clear. One of the biggest things that I think this change does is it's going to allow the Livingston Parish Council to be able to go back to publishing the agenda in the newspaper so that the people of Livingston Parish have time to see what's coming up on the agenda, ask questions to their councilmen, about the agenda item. I think it's a good move. I'd like to make a motion that we pass a resolution to make these changes, okay? So you can see it's spelled out here. Deadline for the submission of items for the agenda shall be Wednesday at noon.
The week before council meeting.
Week before the council meeting.
A second.
Motion by Mr. Mack, seconded by Ms. Sandifer. Is there any discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Talbot.
So we used to do this. This used to be the way it was.
I know.
And there were times that we had to submit agenda items for the next meeting before we had the previous meeting. That was the way it was structured. We changed it because the law allows for us to publish on our website. That was the whole reason for it. You're still going to have the rush by noon. You're still going to have the same rush 3 hours before the noon thing on Wednesday that you have at 5 o'clock, the 3 hours before the 5 o'clock on the Tuesday before the meeting. The same thing's going to occur. We're all going to be sending stuff in at the last minute. There's no difference. If they've got a deadline at the Livingston Parish News, the deadline's still going to exist. And if we send it an hour before, the deadline's still going to exist. Just not going to change.
Mr. King, did you have a comment?
I think it's going to tie our hands to where we can't get stuff in. I don't agree with this at all.
Was there anyone else had a comment on that? I would like to say that you're right. I mean, no matter what deadline you said, you're going to have a rush. However, it will give this council a lot more time to look at ordinances and stuff that comes up, because right now I'm getting bombarded 2 days before the meeting with ordinances that I hadn't even seen. They're trying to be introduced, and it doesn't give us time to look through them. So, I mean, I think it's a good idea, but,
I think it would be beneficial to have it that far in advance so that we can study it appropriately and come to the table prepared and then run the meeting like a true order of business.
Mr. Garlinghouse.
I just, as long as you're more open to, if I have to put something in to get an addendum, add something in.
Okay.
That's
So I don't think you're going to change.
Hold on, we got someone right here to speak. Go ahead. Give us your name and address, please.
Wade Holden, 9160 Harris Road. Having notice for the public to know what's going on up here is very important. Y'all had 2 meetings that I did not know about my property. I'm in favor of this. Thank y'all.
Thank you. You got something else? Go ahead.
I want to offer a substitute motion that if we're going to do this, then it needs to apply to everything. If it's not introduced, if it's not ready, that we don't introduce ordinances off the agenda through the committee, and we don't have addendums at a later date, because ultimately you still don't have the time to study it.
Explain your motion again.
Okay, so right now, if the ordinance committee had a meeting and they did not get their ordinance, like say they had a Tuesday.
Make your motion is what because I think I agree with what you're saying.
What I'm saying is, I want to make a substitute motion that if we adopt these changes, that we add 2 more changes to it, that items cannot be introduced out of committee. They have to be published on the agenda on the Wednesday before, and no addendums.
And the ordinance needs to be in its entirety to be introduced.
Right.
Thank God. Mr. Mack.
I just want to say, I don't think you need a substitute motion. This is just a resolution. I think that we can probably incorporate that into the original motion.
I want to add something else too.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I also think the way that we introduce our ordinance to the public, I don't think you need a vote for that. I think if any person on this council wants to introduce an ordinance to the public for a public hearing, that should be done without a vote.
I disagree with that, Mr. Delat.
I agree with that 100%.
And the other part about that is, not only are we allowed, the Home Rule Charter says the people are allowed to introduce ordinances if it's in a proper written form.
But I think the Home Rule Charter requires that it be sponsored by a councilman.
Mr. McMorris, you got something to say?
Yeah, so the ordinance is not the problem here. It's people coming up in the last minute, putting all this stuff on here that's hurting the deputy clerks and the clerks, trying to rush to get the information out to us. So get emails today on 3 things, put addendums on. I was going to vote on them because I didn't know nothing about them till the last minute.
Right.
So that's going to help all of us, I think.
Let's do this. 1 second, Miss Abby, I'll get with you. Shane, would you be okay with adding the 2 things that Mr. Talbot mentioned to your resolution, or do you?
Yeah, because I was never in favor of having something in an ordinance meeting 48 hours in advance and then shoving it through on the agenda. I definitely think that everything that we're going to discuss and vote on needs to be on the agenda a week in advance, so that, like I said, the public has an opportunity to review.
So you're okay with his 2 items on there?
Yeah, not a problem. I think everything needs to be on there.
Hold on. Randy, if you would bring this up at a different time, that way we can probably vote on this one, because with yours, I think it'll be a problem. Miss Abby, did you want to say something real quick before we vote on this?
Abby Crosby, 19866 LA Highway 42, Livingston, Louisiana, 70754. As Mr. Delat said, it is law or ordinances concern that the people in the audience and the people hold in the parish can make an agenda item. It does not have to be sponsored. That is something that's happened like 2 or 3 councils ago. It just stopped. It does not have to be sponsored. I know it has to be sponsored at the school board, but not as far as for this, because this is a people's meeting. So they can bring it up there within form and submit it at the same time that everything else is submitted. I also know that the media gets a packet, and sometimes we might have questions, and we might call a council member for our area, and they don't even know exactly what's in that media packet because they just got it, and they have 48 hours to learn and study that, which is not feasibly possible for them to know and make a qualified decision for the people of the parish. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, Abby.
So let's do this. Let's pick up Mr. Mack's resolution first, and then if it's okay with Mr. Delat, Mr. Moody, if you would look into with Mr. Delat on the public bringing, if y'all do that, then bring that back so the public to determine whether or not the public can add items to an agenda.
Can I clarify something?
Sure.
So we're voting on this as it's printed with nothing coming out of committee unless it's properly introduced and no addendums.
Correct.
Correct. All right, let's call for the vote, Ms. Caroline.
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Talbert?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. McMorris?
Yes.
Mr. Delat?
Yes.
Ms. Sandifer?
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse?
Yes.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. Wascom?
Yes. Ms. Sandy, please.
There will be no addendums whatsoever.
What it says, no addendums.
So what Tracy just asked, he asked, can you please do an addendum?
Where does it say no addendums?
We just voted on that.
Gary just added it to it.
No.
We already voted on
We just voted on it.
No. If a councilman has something major, we
Well,
need
to
to
every
be able to
council
allow
member.
addendums. I mean,
We
you
just
don't
voted on it.
in an emergency situation, we don't need to have 14 amendments, put in 10 hours before the meeting, okay? But if you need an addendum, I mean, come on, I mean, you got to have the right to put an addendum. I mean, I don't think I've ever put one addendum on.
Okay, so my point is, the reason we're making the change is so everybody has the opportunity to study it. But you want to allow a councilman to have an addendum when nobody has the ability to study it. Now, think about what you're saying. No, that's exactly what you're saying.
Okay, hold on.
So is it important to study or not important to study?
Hey, so
just let it go this time, and we'll change it later.
Hold on. If a constituent has a legitimate concern or something that needs to be done and contacts their councilman, I mean, are y'all going to agree or disagree that we should be able to do the addendum on the agenda and take care of it? But now what we don't need to do is abuse it. Every single council meeting have 14 addendums up there. You know, it's just if it's an emergency, we can have an addendum. I didn't catch that part to where no one can ever have an addendum ever, you know, because I think that you ought to have that right. I mean,
Moody.
President,
Mr. Moody.
well, you can always add something to an agenda at the night of the meeting. If it's an emergency, to lift it, you'd have to have a unanimous vote, so that might give you some comfort.
Yeah, it does. But I mean, you got to have so many votes to lift the agenda and everything else. If you got one councilman against you, you can't put it on the agenda. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can wait 2 weeks if y'all want to. This was to help y'all. I know some of y'all really have some things.
And you know what, Shane? If we need to change it, let's pick it back up at a later time. We'll change that.
Okay.
If we run into an issue, is what you're saying?
Yeah. So that I think it makes it easier for the public will know it sooner, and then we have time to digest these ordinances.
So I guess it passed.
I got you. You good with it? Okay, that motion carried, I believe, didn't it?
Yes.
So, all right.
So can we talk about how we introduce ordinances? It's not on agenda.
If you want to,
do it under councilman comment.
Okay, we're doing council comments.
okay. All right. Item 19 is an introduction of an ordinance. This is, Mr. Mack put this on here. I think it should be classified as non-conformities and non-conforming uses. Is that correct, Shane? Help me out on this one.
It's basically addresses non-conformities, you know, when it comes to zoning, okay? We can title it differently if you want. Just let Sandy read it, let me say a few things, and then we can have a discussion and vote on it.
We'll hash it out. That sounds good.
Ms. Sandy, you want to read by title?
This is proposed ordinance number 23-06, an ordinance to amend Chapter 117 of the Code of Ordinances of Livingston Parish, zoning, Article 3, Nonconformities, Division 1, generally by adding Section 117-85, definition, Section 117-86, nonconforming uses, and Division 2, type of conformities, Section 117-95, nonconforming lots, in Section 117-96, nonconforming structures in and for the parish of Livingston. Public hearing will be held on March 23rd, 2023 at 6 o'clock.
If I'm not mistaken, what this was once we passed zoning in the parish, some people's property didn't match the zoning, so Mr. Mack put together an ordinance that allowed you to keep using your property as it is, even though it might be zoned differently for the future, you can continue to using it as it is. That's what this ordinance was. It went through the ordinance committee. They've looked at it, and so tonight was the introduction. Let's call for the vote. Is that a motion to introduce it, Mr. Mack?
Don't vote on introduction.
Yeah, we do now.
We do?
Yeah, I'll make the motion. I mean, if you need any extra explanation, I mean, this is an introduction. Like you said, John, basically, this is what's going to allow, this is protecting people's property rights, protecting people's current usage. Okay, you got 2 weeks, you can study this, contact your councilman, get better clarification. An example, I think this is really important, John, is why I think we need to talk a little bit about it. A lot of people's watching this on TV, but an example of what this ordinance is going to do for you is this. If you currently have cows, right, and your property is zoned R1, okay, R1 doesn't allow for, farm animals, okay? Well, what this is going to do is it basically says your existing land use you can continue to use it the way you're currently using it today, okay? And keep your cows on your property for as long as you so choose, right? And then say, for instance, it's zoned commercial, it wouldn't turn commercial until you actually sold it for commercial, okay? So this is going to protect you and your property so that you can continue using it the way you currently use it today into the future. And in addition to that, we had a real estate agent came to us, and they were concerned about property being transferred, right? So say you had a residential piece of property, you were living on it in a house, and it was zoned commercial, because that was the future plan for that property. And say 3 or 4 years from now, you wanted to sell that piece of property as residential, right? This written law, if it's adopted in a couple of weeks, is going to allow you to transfer that use, transfer that residential structure, so that they can continue using it as residential property. It really is, it's all about protecting the citizens and protecting the private property owners. So I'd like to make the motion to introduce this.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Hard. Any discussion? We all know what this is about. Ms. Carroll, you got a question? You got a question, Tracy?
Yeah. And I don't want to stir up a hornet's nest.
Well, good, thank you.
But I do want to say this. Why are we voting on the introduction?
Because we should.
So,
We
okay.
always have before the certain chairman.
All right,
Call for
so
the vote.
I just want to
Call for
clarify.
the
I just
vote.
want to clarify.
That's it,
We're
Tracy.
not voting.
Call for the vote, Caroline.
We're not going to vote
Tracy,
for this.
that's enough.
Or what?
Oh, you're leaving.
I want to see that.
I want to see that.
I want to see that.
Mr. Mack,
Yes?
Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. McMorris,
Yes.
Mr. Gilat,
Yes.
Ms. Sandifer,
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse,
I abstain.
Mr. Ard,
Yes.
Mr. Wascom.
Yes. All right, item 20, introduction of ordinance creating zoning district R 2.5. This was placed on the agenda by Mr. Talbot. You want to talk about this, Gary?
Sure. This is an ordinance that basically, if you look at our classifications, we've got a gap. There are, you can get a density of 2.5, but your lot width 70 at R 1.5. And there are plenty of subdivisions that are approved and some being constructed that have 40-foot lots at a density of 2.5. So in an effort to be able to zone Council District 2 properly, I'm requesting that we create R 2.5, which is a density of 2.5 with a minimum lot width of 40 feet, which is basically what the ordinance was before we create zoning, which is what, if you brought something to in Watson right now and got a subdivision approved, this is the guidelines you would be following. So I think we need to create a zoning district that matches those guidelines.
Chair.
Mr. McMorris.
So what's this going to do for the rest of the parish? Is that going to mean the whole parish would have to go to that 2.5, or they would have the option?
No, it's
to go
just like
2.5?
right now you got R1, you got R1.5, you've got R2, you've got R3. So you can zone different areas different ways. All I'm requesting is that there have been subdivisions approved in Watson that to classify them so that they would be conforming, I would have to classify them as R3 because of the lot width, but the density increases tremendously. And it was brought up, actually, I'm gonna tell you what, Ms. Ferris made a post on Facebook that talked about the increased in density on R3, but when you start looking for something that you could place a currently approved subdivision under, there's nothing within our code. So my idea was to come up with R2.5, which is the density that we currently have, and the lot width that we currently have. I mean, even though we don't have a minimum lot width, there's been no subdivisions with lots built less than 40 foot wide unless they were garden homes. So in an effort to zone Watson properly, I would like to have, or Council District 2 properly, this classification, so I wouldn't have to use R3 and create a density of 7. I would rather stay at a density of 2.5.
John.
And so if a councilman doesn't want to use it in their area, they don't have to.
Mr. Mack.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm not opposed to creating a new classification and having the uses in the width, so that it matches. I do want to say that, if you're okay with it, we could take this to the ordinance committee. And the reason I say that is because I got an email today, and it was about classification 2.5 and the uses, and there was some, information within this email that's different from your ordinance. So I don't know. I mean, it's up to y'all. I'm not opposed to it. You can modify it later, I guess, but if you wanted to take a look at this and see if you want to add, subtract, multiply, or divide to
I
help
think
you and benefit
these
you.
accessory uses and recreational uses and allowed uses are pretty much standard through the rural single-family whole setback. I mean, I think rural family 1, rural family 1.5, rural family 2 have similar allowed uses, accessory uses, and recreational uses. I don't think there's anything abnormal about the uses set forth in R2.5.
I'm not saying it's abnormal. What I'm saying is...
Well, so let's introduce it.
I'm just saying the allowed uses, well, I guess you could do that. You could modify it in
It's one question
the
here I
future,
wanna
but
ask.
I'm just saying...
Mr. Latch had a question?
Yeah. Or maybe I want to ask the attorney, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So when you saying it's only to your area?
No, I'm
it's
saying
just
that
a
I'm
classification.
requesting it so that I
But
can
it's gotta
use it
be
in my area, but it's a parish-wide zoning.
Yes,
Then if
parish-wide.
a
That
councilman
was it.
doesn't want to utilize it, he doesn't have to utilize it.
Right.
Is it?
It's parish-wide. I was just saying that it's not exactly what I received, so I don't know if there was multiple communication about the 2.5 and if we were going to write 2.5 to benefit, multiple people or what, but
Well, I mean,
just wanna let you know.
Is that a motion to introduce?
I'm going to make a motion to introduce.
I need to read it.
Pardon?
So it needs to be read.
Well, let's see if we're going to get a second first.
Second.
Second by Mr. Girlinghouse.
This is proposed ordinance 23-07, an ordinance to amend Chapter 117 zoning, Article 4 zoning districts by creating Division 4.1 R2.5 residential rural single family. Public hearing will be March 23rd, 2023 at 6 o'clock.
All right. Any comment from the public? Oh, we got some.
Wade Holden, 9160 Harris Road, Denham Springs. We're not Baton Rouge, we're Livingston Parish. We're rural. We don't have 40-foot wide lots. If we allow this, we could come up, and I have a lot in Watson, I've got some in Watson, 1,000-foot long, 40-foot wide. I could build a magnificent trailer park, move a bunch of crackheads in. Y'all receive no taxes from the school system, get overran, and the sheriff's office gets ran nuts from all the people living in that close together. Thank you.
R2.5, R3, this dumbass. Did I say that out loud?
Gus Holden, 20384 LA Trace Road. We already got enough drainage problems, and y'all wanting to make 40-foot wide lots, that just don't make good sense for the parish. We already have enough flooding issues, and y'all wanting to make them smaller, and it seems like we should have a standard rule for the whole parish, not one size lot here in this day, and then tomorrow we're going to say, oh no, we can make a different size lot over here. That makes no sense. Thank y'all.
Thank you, sir.
Sarah Ferris, 19241 Plantation Trace. My own home is just under 1,600 square feet, so not what you would consider a large house. I measured it today, it's 60 feet wide. I measured a friend's house, which is a garden home, and it is 45 feet wide, and that is a garden home. So I believe, Mr. Talbert, you said you have subdivisions in your district already that are already with 40-foot lots. Do you have one that you could name to me? Because I would like to go look at it before March 23rd.
I mean, I'd have to go back and look. I know that we've approved some 40-foot wide lots. I think, what is,
I couldn't tell you.
crepe myrtle or whatever, the lots are like narrower than that. Hold on, give me a second. I'll give you some
Okay, you
address.
can respond to my next Facebook post.
Okay, we have one more, I think. Yeah.
Make sure when anybody else behind. I'm Jennifer Holden. My address is 20384 LA Trace Road. Me and my husband married in 1990. I am not a born and raised Livingston Parish resident, but when we married, we moved to Walker. Walker was nothing in 90. There was one little red light. There was never flooding. Our lot never had any water on it. In 2016, I just want to ask all of you, did you learn a lesson? Because a lot of people got flooded. My house survived by 1.5 inch in Walker. My house became the refugee camp for the entire family. All of their houses flooded but ours, by the grace of God. We had to camp all those people. We got to do everything we can with drainage plans first before we narrow lots. If anything, we should make them bigger, not smaller. Have less residents, not more. because we are crowding out all these properties. These subdivisions are planting everywhere, and they're putting hundreds of houses in there that we can't support by roadways, schools, fire, or anything. It needs to be halted, and let's make a drainage plan before we jump in and add more houses into the parish. That's all I
have. We had a motion, I think, by Mr. Talbert, second by Mr. Girlinghouse.
I want to discuss it.
Can I make a comment, John?
Well, hold on, everybody wants to make a comment.
Okay, well, I mean-
I'm just trying to keep this moving.
Wait, I want to make a comment.
Okay, Mr. Rainey.
That we, underneath these circumstances, I don't believe in 40-foot lots either, okay? But I do believe everyone should have opportunity to introduce an ordinance. That's why it shouldn't be voted on. Whoever wants to introduce the ordinance on this committee should be able to introduce it according to the Home Rule Charter. In addition to that, the audience can introduce an ordinance if it's in a proper written form. So what I'm trying to say is, I can't vote for this 2 weeks from now, but I'm not going to keep a man from introducing something he believes in, and I just believe that's fair.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Chair, I want to make a substitute motion to send this to the ordinance committee for further review.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
We had a motion by Mr. Talbert to adopt it tonight, or introduce it tonight, and a substitute motion to not to introduce it and send it to the ordinance committee to be worked out, and so that would take first precedence. Let's vote for Ms. Erin Sandifer's motion to not adopt that ordinance and send it to the ordinance committee.
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Talbert?
No.
Mr. King?
No.
Mr. McMorris?
Yes.
Mr. Delatte?
No.
Ms. Sandifer?
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse?
No.
Mr. Ard?
No.
Mr. Wascom?
Yes. So that motion failed?
Yep.
All right, so now we'll pick up Mr. Talbert's motion to introduce this ordinance tonight. You want to call for the vote on that?
We introduce it tonight, it passes tonight?
No.
No, it's an introduction.
Just introduce.
You have to vote to introduce.
Well, we're going to vote. We're going to vote.
Mr. Mack?
No.
Mr. Talbert?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. McMorris?
No.
Mr. Delatte?
Yes.
Ms. Sandifer?
No.
Mr. Girlinghouse?
Yes.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. Wascom?
No. All right, I think that motion carried, correct? All right, so that motion's been introduced tonight. It'll be picked up at the next council meeting for adoption. Item 21, public discussion on LPR 23-0261, Mr. Talbert.
Well, last meeting, we had we invited the library director here, and we ended up making an ordinance.
No, we didn't.
We ended up with a resolution, excuse me, I used the wrong term. You ended up with a resolution, and we did not have a public hearing. So to reaffirm the resolution, which I can read for y'all, Livingston Parish Resolution Number 23-061, motion was made by Gary Talbert, duly seconded by Shane Mack, to submit request to the Livingston Parish Library Board as follows. Introduce two bills at the legislature that the Attorney General's office has talked about, one being a tiered card system that allows access based on age and parental consent, and the second being parish government be given more authority with respect to what's happening in local libraries. The second part of the motion was to research digital driver's license and/or Q code or barcode on driver's license within their verification system so you can prove that you're 18 at that point in time. And the third was to give restrictions on e-cards and then have the parents lift the restrictions so that all library cards would be restricted to the max and the parents could then free the cards up. Upon being submitted for a vote, the vote was unanimous. So consequently, we did not have a public hearing. So we cannot use this ordinance as
So
it
is
was.
that the motion? We'll do it again tonight?
The motion is to
Okay.
reaffirm this ordinance.
Is there a
which was-
second?
Yeah.
Second by Mr. King. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak? Ms. Laurie, is that correct? I thought I recognized you back there. How you been? How's Mr. Al doing?
He's not doing well, but I've been up to lots of politics.
Did you want to comment on this resolution, please?
My name is Lori Calais. I live at 1011 Bay Tree in Denham Springs.
I'm a resident of this parish and a retired teacher, and I stand tonight in opposition to this resolution and motion made by Mr. Talbot concerning the council endorsing the library restriction bills being introduced in the state legislature's next legislative session. And yes, I have read those bills, and they are extremely restrictive, and I have read your resolution there, and I'm specifically addressing the one where it says parish government to be given more authority with respect to what's happening in local libraries. And specifically, this bill, or if it passes in this session, would basically allow the parish councils across the state to have basically total control over their library system and the library board of control. Yes, it's pretty restrictive. This would let this council or any council in the state replace any of our library board control members at will and put someone willing to do the library council's bidding in place. Again, that's what the motion said, and that is what will be discussed in the session. We have an outstanding library system and a director, and I appreciate all that they have done to make our library system one of the best in the state, but I would hate to see what it would be like if our local government messes with that library system, because frankly, I don't think we need more government. I think we need less government, because it's just too involved. And I think we need to acknowledge that our library directors and our librarians are actually trained and educated individuals. They have degrees in this stuff. They know what they're doing. We may not always agree, but there are procedures in place across the state to address those issues. So I encourage this council to vote no on this motion to show our library board of control that you support them. Please consider this. These bills would literally give the council the power to be the moral authority over what people read and ultimately think in this parish, and as history has shown. Once you crack open the door, and it would be y'all, to telling what people they may read or what they may think, because that is what we do when we tell people what they can and cannot read and how they should raise their children and what their children should read and what their children should not read, as opposed to that's, as a parent, that would be my business. I think we need to remember that once you crack open that door, the high winds of moral outrage and bigotry are just going to blow it off its hinges, and you're not going to stop with one subject. It's going to pick them all up, because I may not like this and I may not like that, and you know what? That's how you start banning books. That's how a society begins, and that is what this session will do. And so I am asking you, please don't open that door, and also please do not endorse these bills. The session will do it. Livingston Parish doesn't have to. Thank you.
Cory, thank you. Yeah, Ms. Abby Crosby, I think, raised a hand. You got something to say on this?
Yes. I gave my address earlier.
That's fine.
I've attended the last 3 library control boards, which not a lot of control over it. Whenever you have people that don't ask questions on the board about contracts, what money is being spent where, they being presented with pornography that our kids are seeing at an 8-year-old, 7-year-old
If you would talk to
level.
us, Ms. Abby.
Well, sorry.
That's okay.
Also, yes, they are trained, and that's great. But you need other eyes. You need business people. You need logical people. You need people that do not.
I'm sorry. Continue, Ms. Abby.
Okay, but anyway, the thing is, they're not asking the questions, and you, as the councilman, you have the right to appoint, and you have the right to take them off. According to the Home Rule Charter, it's at your discretion, at your will. Okay, that is in the Home Rule Charter. It has always been that way. I know that some people don't want to take them off because it is being common courtesy. Some of them have, it's nothing against age description, whatever it is. But some of them have been on there for 38 years. Maybe there are some other people that are teachers, that are businessmen, and everything else like that would like to serve on the board. Okay, I've seen board members fall asleep up there. I've seen them use age discretion against each other up there. Okay, the things that I have viewed personally from going on with a card, which is on my Facebook, is quite disgusting. Just with an 8-year-old imagination and a description and a picture is all you need. And these people have been knowing about it for months. in months, and y'all have even spoke out against it along with the parish president, and they basically gave you the big fat bird in your face when they sent you the letter.
Thank you, Ms. Abby.
And that is so disrespectful, and that as a taxpayer, as a mother of 5 and a grandmother of 3, it is what we do at home with our kids. But when my son goes to the library with his class, and he sees a young guy in there, probably about 12 years old, is looking on how to build guns, and the guy is so upset that he can't find the right information to build a gun at 11 years old, we have problems, more than just pornography. Where's the oversight for this?
Ms. Abby, thank you. We have another gentleman to speak on this.
Wade Holden again, 9160 Harris Road. I was one of those kids at 11, 12 years old trying to figure out how to build guns, build traps. I turned out just fine, I think. Thank y'all.
All right, is there anyone else? I don't want to get an email so I didn't give somebody a chance to talk. But if you would, try not to repeat, what's already been said for the sake of time.
Sure. Tara LeGlue, address is 10439 Mathern Place Drive in Denham Springs. I work for the library, and I understand none of y'all have masters in library and information science. Is that correct? So, I am extremely trained in picking out the books and how to pick out the books and what to pick out. And it is not just porn. There's no porn. The person who Mr. Talbert had come into the library to find porn went through everything he could to get to it, which is not what people do. And the kids don't, I'm a youth librarian, they don't come into the library and look for porn. They just don't. They use their phones, which parents give them, which is private, that they don't have to worry about people seeing their porn on the phone, on the computers at the library. So everything that's happening is just crazy. Nobody's trying to make kids gay or anything else, and you are in charge of what your children read. You are, not us. We provide information, and that's all we're there to do, and nothing more. So if you don't want your child to see certain things, then that's great. You as a parent get to decide that, but you shouldn't have to tell everyone else what their kids can't see because maybe you don't want your kids to see that, or you're not comfortable with that, whatever the case may be.
Thank you so much. We have another one, and let's go ahead and make this the last one for the sake of,
I'll try to be quick and not repeat anything.
Thank you so much.
Catlin Roberts, 34992 Quail Creek Drive. I live in Watson. I've lived in Watson my whole life, and I love our libraries. Let's see, I'm not repeating anything. I'm also a mother of 4, so I can understand the concern for the safety of children and the concerns of what is available to them. But when I brought my 4 children to the library to get their library cards, I signed an agreement that I was responsible for their behavior in the library, and the material that they checked out was under my supervision. I took that responsibility and I agreed to that policy. That policy is in place. Another policy that is already in place is, what do we actually call it? It's just the complaint form, the challenge form. People are not using this. If you have a problem or a concern with something that's in our library now, there is a form and a procedure already in place to make a request for it to be reviewed by the library board. To challenge the books.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, or any of the material. People are not using this. They're waiting for a public display to be made, basically to stand on a street corner and be seen by men. Doesn't feel like the solutions actually, or the goal is a solution to a problem. It's to make an issue out of something that's not an issue. Like she just said, like the kids are not coming to the library to look at porn on a giant screen in front of the whole thing. They're doing it on their phones. So a lot of these things are a non-issue that don't really need to change. People just need to use the policies that are already in place. And second, to not attack the members of the librarians and the library board directors that, like, their entire reason for being librarians is not to show porn to kids. Sure. They love books, love learning, and love our community, and they're here because they want to see the next generation learn and thrive, and they want to give them the tools and resources to do that and succeed. They don't deserve to be slandered on the internet for their service to our community and its children.
Thank you so much. All right, I think we had a motion by Mr. Talbert. Who seconded that? Was it Scooter?
I don't remember.
I can't remember.
It probably was.
It probably was.
Yeah.
Is there any more comments from the council?
Yeah, go ahead. I want to ask Gary, what is a resolution, right? So
Yeah, this is just a resolution to send to the library board, the one we've
basically what
already
it was.
passed.
Yeah, the same one we already did. We're just doing a revote.
Right, so we're not asking the library board to ban a book. We're not asking the library board to, you know, do any of this stuff. We're not asking to defund the library. We're asking them to do three things, you know, to back support two bills, to research verification of age through, you know, whether you use a digital driver's license or whatever, and then basically restrict access to minors and then allow parents to open them up. I'm just going to give you an example. My daughter went and got a library card for my 13-month-old grandson because I didn't have a library card. I've had people telling me about minor library cards. I didn't have one. So I got her to get one for my son. She opened a Canopy account through the library. I logged in and typed sex. So if my 13-month-old grandson knew how to operate a computer, he could watch TVMA movies, R-rated movies, a ton of non-rated documentaries that dealt with all kind of subjects. So of course I've been accused of cracking the firewall. Actually, all the private investigator did was when he used search engines to look up pornographic sites, they were blocked. But he went on TikTok, and through TikTok was able to get pornography at the library. Through, you know, Reddit, he was able to go to an OnlyFans account. Through DuckDuckGo, whatever, he was able to access it. So there was no cracking of a firewall. It was absolutely going outside of a search engine to a social media site. So the only thing we talked about was adding additional filters, which we didn't even put in the resolution. We just brought it to the public's attention so that there would be pressure. We didn't talk about a single librarian and criticize their work. What we talked about was the firewall set up or the filter set up at the library being
but the resolution, what is the resolution?
The resolution asks the library board to endorse two bills at the legislature. One that allows tiered card system, requires a tiered card system based on age to access certain materials. The second one gives parish government more authority. And of course, Ms. Calais was against the second one, and I understand that. However, if you look at the most recent Attorney General's opinion issued to the parish council in St. Tammany, it gives the parish council the ability to remove, for whatever reason, a library control board member and replace them. So it does, the Attorney General opinion already allows for that. It just creates an ordinance that identifies exactly the same thing. There's probably going to be an addendum, I met with a legislature the other day that's pretty sharp on computers and stuff. There's going to be some amendments tacked on some of this stuff that talks about second tier filters, that talks about going to provide filters, you know, to social media so that stuff cannot be accessed. We'll talk about putting filters on Canopy for minors so that they cannot access certain materials. So basically, then it talks about verification of age, because right now, if you go on and you access a particular site, it says, are you 18? And you hit a button that says yes, and there's no verification. So we're asking the library to look into utilizing an electronic driver's license to do that. And the third thing is to restrict access to the accounts and then have the parents unrestricted. That's what the ordinance, that's what the resolution talks about.
The resolution goes to the library board, or does it go to legislators?
It goes to the library board and asks them to do these particular things.
Okay. I'm going to be opposing that because the library board has to work independent from me. I appoint the library board member, but if I want them to do everything I tell them to do, then they're not representing the community. They have to think on their own. If they don't do a good enough job when their term expires, then I would replace that. If you want to pass a resolution to go to the legislator, then that's okay with me. I can do it that way, but I'm not going to micromanage anybody. I'm not going to do that.
So I'm going to be the same way. I don't have an appointee on that board. but if I ask them to do something, especially with the books, I think they should respect us enough to do our wishes, correct? But I think local government shouldn't get involved. We already do our part by electing people to put on there, okay? It's not your district, my district. It's supposed to be a board decision who's on that board, and I think everybody should have a chance to be on that board. So we're going to look at that to make that happen.
We already did that.
All right, so we have a motion then?
We got that sent to session for them to see about adding members where everybody has
That's in.
Already induced.
Yeah, so we had a motion by Ms. Talbert, seconded by Mr. King to, I guess, to reaffirm the last meeting, the same resolution. Ms. Carolyn, you want to call for the vote?
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Talbert?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. McMorris?
No.
Mr. Delat?
No.
Ms. Sandifer?
Yes.
Mr. Girlinghouse?
No.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. Wascom?
Yes.
Passes.
Did that motion carry? All right. Let's see, next item, item 22, resolution supporting the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution, Mr. Jeff Ard.
All right. So this is fairly simple. So this is kind of a second, another layer of protection for our Second Amendment rights for Livingston Parish citizens. So right now, we kind of have a federal and state, but if they were to start tinkering with that and trying to take our rights, this is another layer that helps protect our Second Amendment right. We have a couple of parishes that have already passed this, St. Mary, Point Capee, St. Tammany, Wynn, Grant, and Rapides. So I had a constituent, Mr. Logan Vicellio, is that right? He's in the audience. He brought this to my attention. We've kind of worked on it back and forth. We took all the other ones and made the latest and greatest that we could. Second Amendment sanctuary, also known as a gun sanctuary, refers to state, counties, and localities in the United States that have adopted laws or resolutions to prohibit or impede the enforcement of certain gun controls measures which are perceived to violate the Second Amendment, such as universal gun background checks, high-capacity magazine bans, assault weapon bans, red flag laws, etc. Although other jurisdictions had previously adopted legislation now characterized as creating Second Amendment sanctuaries, the Carroll County, Maryland Board of Commissioners is thought to be the first body to use the term sanctuary in its resolution on May 2nd, 2013. The board is thought to have popularized the term in April 16, 2018. So Second Amendment sanctuaries proclaim a duty to resist what they see as unconstitutional violation of an individual's right to bear arms. So that's basically what this is. I think, do we need to read this? So the question, Chris, is we're putting this in a resolution form. Would this be something we should do in an ordinance, or is resolution enough to protect our Second Amendment rights?
Well, protect them from whom, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
It certainly gives an expression of what you stand for.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what it accomplishes beyond that. From a legal standpoint.
So you're saying a resolution would probably be the best thing?
That's what all the other parishes did with a resolution. So we just want to make sure we was doing it the right way.
I think it's a positive expression of how this council feels.
I'd like to second that.
Oh, nope, I already got a second. Motion by Mr. Jeff Ard, seconded by Mr. Randy Delat. Any more discussion? He caught me first, y'all. I had to do it. Is there any more discussion? None being?
We got somebody.
I'm sorry. Raise your hand high. All right, Lord, I'll get accused of not letting people talk. I don't want that.
You good at that, didn't it? What did you do?
Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to say, Lori Colley, Denham Springs. I'm a gun owner. I grew up with guns. I hunted. Okay, I fished. You wanted outdoors, you got me. All right? I was 9 months pregnant out hunting. So I'm not against guns. I'm also a teacher. Okay? Have you ever been in a real lockdown drill? Multiple times? I have. I've literally pulled my kids and said, get over here, y'all huddle up. And they were terrified. Who's coming for your gun? All my life, I have heard, they're going to get our guns, they're going to stop our guns, they're going to get our guns. Nobody's taking my gun. You know, they really haven't. I haven't stopped you from buying an AR-15 if that's what you would like. So this basically tells everybody in this parish, hey, guns are extremely important here. The hell with our kids. As a teacher, it's too important to realize your children are going through lockdown, live lockdown drills. It's really rough. I was a teacher, and they made us put our hands behind our back and walk out because somebody was going to shoot us. I've been in those drills. I've actually been in live ones. Look, nobody's getting you guns. They never have. But there's a lot of fear that says they are. I want to know what's the matter with discussing this. So we're going to say to the world, hey, Livingston Parish, guns. Livingston Parish, guns. Livingston Parish, guns. But we're more than that. We are so much more than that. We are a community that will help each other. We are a community that supports each other. And I just have to say this. My husband read this today. I read it to him. He said, what is this? I read it to 3 other friends. You know, everybody said, sanctuary from what? What you gonna do? It's okay to have the guns and use them? On who? Me? So I know this is gonna pass because we're Livingston Parish. But you just remember, you send a message. All of you send a message, you know? And it's a loud one to our children. Again, there's nothing wrong with having a gun. But to tell everybody, if they come for our guns, we're going to shoot them. And you know who they are? They're us.
Okay, I have a gentleman over here, but I'll get with you. And look, if you would, let's move along, but give us your name and address where you, and
Logan Pacheco, 1026 Columbia Avenue. I live in the Juban area. First of all, I just want to address the government has a historic history of coming after firearms and our rights. And secondly, firearms, it's for all of us. Left, right, middle of the road. It's not for any particular group. It's for everybody, just like our First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. So pretty much what this bill is, just like Mr. Jeff said, this is to protect our rights, whether it's on a federal level. Say the ATF comes and says, assault weapon ban, which they're really trying to do. Magazine ban, just like they do in the state of California. You can't have a magazine over the size of 10 rounds. So it's very, very popular tradition in history. It's not uncommon for the government, state, federal, or even federal agencies that come after your firearms, whether it's a law, unconstitutional, or if it's just a rule made by the ATF. So things like this is very important because it protects us on a local level from not just the federal government, but also the state, because as we've seen, the state does bad things as well, and the government is not here to help us. Thank you.
what was your name, your first name?
Logan.
Logan, thank you so much. Yeah, now we had one gentleman. Oh, Mr.
Two.
Okay.
Gus Holden, I'd previously give my address. Once you give up your rights and you keep taking more and more away, the government it's no answer for the government to take things from people, and every time you give up a little bit, they're going to take more, and it's going to continue to take more and more rights away from the people. And one day, the government could come for you. That is there for our protection as people of the United States. And the lady here with the gun situation, the schools, I have a 6-year-old grandson. He can shoot a .22. He is sitting there under my supervision, and now even my daughter-in-law, who is not a fan of guns, she 100% trusts him to be with me shooting guns, and he enjoys it. But you got to educate your children, teach them right. But that, again, falls on the parents and grandparents and the people that are raising the children.
Thank you so much. One second, I got one right here. Mr. Holden?
Wade Holden, 9160 Harris Road. We got library rights, we got kids' rights, we got gun rights, but y'all just remember when Frog Talbert and Bubba Harris tried to take my property rights.
All right, wait, let's go ahead and wrap it up. You got one more here, and we'll stop there.
Marla Dodds, 8028 Chaparral Drive, Dedham Springs. I guess my concern is, why are we so concerned with making sure that we have the right to guns that we already have, but we're so willing to take away the rights of freedom of what we see in a library that is advocated and giving us, taking away those freedoms?
All right, thank you so much. All right, let's go ahead and close that down, Randy.
I got to make a comment. The reason I have to make a comment, it seems like Jeff's taking a lot of heat, and it's not fair that he's taking that heat. We've talked about the same thing together, and if he didn't win the coin toss, I would have won the coin toss. So he's presenting it, taking the heat, but we all feel the same way, and I want to make that clear.
All right, so we had a motion by Mr. Hard, seconded by Mr. Delat. Did you want to say something, Mr. Gerald McMorris?
Yeah, I'm nice, raise my hand every meeting.
Absolutely, look, I know. Raise it high.
Just look this way. So I voted no on the library thing, okay? There was a reason behind that, because hey, that should be state, not us. But anyway, the guns, hey, I'm a gun owner. Somebody stole all my guns, don't know where they went to, so they're not coming to get mine, all right? We got to protect the people that owns guns, shoots guns. I got a 5-year-old granddaughter just like Mr. Holden. She can shoot probably better than any guy up here. I want to protect my kids when they get older so they have the rights. So let's call for the vote.
All right, we have the motion and the second. So, Ms. Carolyn, would you call for the vote?
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Talbert?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. McMorris?
Yes.
Mr. Delat?
Yes.
Ms. Sandifer?
Yes.
Mr. Grayling-House?
Yes.
Mr. Ard?
Yes.
Mr. Wascom?
Yes.
Carries.
All right. The next item is committee reports, Finance Committee. I don't think, y'all didn't meet, did you, Randy? Ordinance Committee, Shane, you want to talk about what we talked about?
Meeting more.
Yeah, I do. Well, we talked about the nonconformance ordinance that we just introduced, and then we're also talking about the classifications within zoning and the uses within those classifications, the width and of the lots allowed in different residential zoning classifications. I'd like for you to know that we're currently working to clarify and, fix some of the, I guess you could say, discrepancies within that classification ordinance. We're going to be talking about that in the next ordinance committee meeting. It's very important that we get it right. Now, so I just got a text that the Albany Girls High School basketball team won tonight, so they'll be playing next week in the Sweet 16 tournament there at Southeastern. So I don't think we should have an ordinance committee meeting next week. I'm not quite sure if they're going to play Tuesday or Wednesday, if they win, they play again. So, and then we can't have it the Tuesday before the council meeting. So I think the next ordinance committee meeting would be the 14th of March at 5:30.
All right. Mr. Moody, did you have any comments?
Executive session, is that what you're asking me about?
Yes.
Oh, no other report other than that.
Okay, do you have anything to discuss in executive session?
We have nothing more to report than the fact that there doesn't seem to be an interest in pursuing the requested settlement. Now, if you want me to go tell you that in executive session, we can. Or you want to talk about it more, we can. But that's basically the feedback I had.
Let's do it in the back.
I want to talk about it more.
You do? All right, so what we'll do is there a motion to go to executive?
You want to go ahead and do councilman comment, and then that way?
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and take care of councilman comments. Does anybody have anything you want to add? Good news, hopefully, Mr. McMorris.
All right, Coyell chili cook-off for the Coyell Baptist Church at the Coyell Ballpark. It's going to be 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock on Saturday. If you want to come out and get you some free chili, let's come on out. All right, March 13th, 2023, zoning for District 6. I already had 2 meetings. I'm asking anybody in our district to come and tell me your plans for your property. I don't want to tell you what you have to do with your property, just like what I did with the big landowners. They came, they told me what they wanted, and I'm trying to do what the people want. So come out and make sure you get on my list to zone your property. All right. One thing I do want to do, I'm not endorsing this guy, but I failed to do something. Jason Amato, he's from LaPlace, Louisiana. He's going to be running for District 81. He will be in our next council meeting for our presentations. So if you'd like to talk to him, he's in the audience tonight, and I apologize by not putting you on the agenda. All right. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Scooter?
I'm good, sir.
Mr. Garlinghouse?
No, I'm good.
Oh, LaPlace, I'm sorry, Lutcher.
Two things. I want to also recognize Jason, great guy. Legally can't endorse him either, but he's a great guy, and he'll do a wonderful job. The second thing is you want to, at the chili cook-off contest, you can come meet your favorite unelected judge, and I won't be biased, but I am judging the contest, Jeff, if you want to help.
I'm available.
Ms. Sandifer?
I don't have any comments.
Mr. Hart?
I do. Walker Girls won 60-34. So, they're going to Southeastern.
All right, nice.
That's two teams in our girls division from the parish.
Fantastic. Shane, did you have anything else?
That's awesome.
Okay.
And there was one more team, y'all, Springfield Bulldogs, the girls. They were playing tonight. I don't know if they won or not. I hope they did. That would be 3 Livingston Parish teams in the Sweet 16 next
great.
week, so we'll see
Yeah,
that.
all right.
Okay, the only other item I have left is executive session and adjourn. So what we'll do is we're not going to officially adjourn, but we're going to go to the back, have an executive session, come back out. And if we don't take no action, we'll adjourn. But even if we do take some action, but we won't take any in the executive session. We won't do anything till we get back. And then after that, we'll just adjourn. So a motion to go into executive session?
Motion.
Mr. King, second by Mr. Garlinghouse. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Channel 17, proudly serving the Florida parishes.
Because we have some council members that are not going to be present for this vote.
All right. Mr. Mack?
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Talbert?
Absent.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. McMorris?
Here.
Mr. Delat?
Here.
Ms. Sandifer? Here. Mr. Garlinghouse?
Here.
Mr. Ard? Mr. Wascom?
I'm here. All right, we went into executive session. We took no action, but we did have some discussion with a legal advisor, and I think he has a
Yes,
recommendation.
I made a recommendation to give me some authority to negotiate with the employee in question, and I ask that you give me that authority.
I made that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Delat, seconded by Mr. King. Would you call for the vote, please?
Mr. Mack?
Yes.
Mr. Talbert? Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. McMorris?
No.
Mr. Delat?
Yes.
Ms. Sandifer?
Yes.
Mr. Garlinghouse?
Yes.
Mr. Ard? Mr. Wascom?
Yes. Motion carries. So you have that authority.
Thank you, sir.
I'll make a motion we adjourn.
Motion by Delat, seconded by King. All in favor, say aye. Aye.